Julian Hayes had always believed that life followed a predictable path: go to work, come home, pay bills, repeat. But that night, under the cold drizzle of a relentless rain, his world collided with something entirely unpredictable. Eva Kensington, umbrella in hand, noticed him first, a man shivering beneath a tattered blanket at a deserted bus stop, soaked to the bone, invisible to everyone else rushing past. The streetlights flickered, casting distorted shadows on the wet pavement. And for a moment, it felt as though time itself had stopped to witness what was about to unfold. Julian looked up at her with wide, wary eyes, a flicker of disbelief in the depths of his gaze. The kind of gaze that has seen too much, survived too little, and still hoped for a lifeline. If you believe in kindness, second chances, and the power of one small act to change a life, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Your support helps stories like this reach more hearts. Eva couldn't just walk past him. Her instincts, honed over years of volunteering at shelters and community centers, screamed that this was a life she had the power to touch. She knelt beside Julian, her coat soaked, her scarf now wrapped loosely around his trembling shoulders. He flinched initially, his body taut with the kind of instinctive mistrust that only life on the streets can teach. But there was something in Eva's gentle tone, the calm confidence of her presence, that made him pause, soften, and eventually trust. She guided him to her car and drove through the rain to a small 24-hour diner, where the warm light spilling onto the pavement felt like a promise of safety. Julian moved cautiously, his steps hesitant, as though each one required an immense effort to remember what it felt like to be human again. Eva didn't rush him. She let him breathe, let him take the first steps toward reclaiming fragments of a life that had slipped away. In the corner booth, steaming mugs of tea in front of them, Julian wrapped his hands around the warmth, drawing strength from something as simple, yet as vital, as heat. The diner was quiet, a few late-night customers whispering over their meals. Eva watched Julian take small bites, observing the way he hesitated, as if savoring every morsel, while also fearing it might vanish before he could enjoy it fully. She realized then that this was more than hunger. This was survival, reclaiming dignity piece by piece. Finally, after what seemed like hours to anyone else but only minutes to them, he spoke. His voice was raw, frail, yet steady in its quiet determination. He told her his name, Julian Hayes, and slowly, with painstaking caution, began to unravel the story of his life before the streets swallowed him whole. Julian had been a carpenter, a man with steady hands and a heart that poured into the work he loved. He'd built homes, repaired lives, and shared laughter with friends who had trusted him without question. Then came the accident, a scaffolding collapse at a worksite that killed his closest friend. Julian survived, but the weight of that night crushed more than just his spirit. Guilt, grief, and a relentless sense of responsibility consumed him. His employer offered support, authorities cleared him of wrongdoing, but nothing erased the image of his friend falling, the sound of debris, the sharp sting of failure. Life, once bright and brimming with possibility, became a shadowed hallway with no doors. Eva listened, her own hands trembling slightly as she held her cup. She didn't speak, not because she didn't care, but because some stories demand to be heard, not interrupted. When Julian spoke of the months he spent wandering city streets, nights swallowed by cold, hunger gnawing at him like a persistent ghost, Eva felt her heart ache. She thought of the countless people she had helped, the ones who accepted assistance gratefully, quickly, or reluctantly. But Julian's story carried a depth of sorrow that was almost tangible. It was a story, not just of loss, but of survival against odds that would break most. Over the next few days, Eva refused to let Julian return to the shadows he had known. She helped him secure temporary lodging at a small shelter, connected him with a medical check-up, and slowly, painstakingly, began to rebuild trust that life could be gentle again. Julian resisted at first. Pride and shame wrapped around him like chains, but Eva's presence was steady, unwavering, and soon he began to see a glimmer of a future he thought had been erased. Small victories, a warm shower, a fresh set of clothes, a conversation without judgment rekindled a spark in him. Eva's commitment was not flashy, not dramatic, but it was real, consistent, and profoundly transformative. One rainy evening, as they walked together from a community center where Eva volunteered, Julian stopped. His expression was unreadable, shadowed by years of struggle and pain. Then, slowly, he reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small, crumpled envelope. He handed it to Eva with a trembling hand, his eyes reflecting a vulnerability he had shielded from the world for far too long. Inside was a folded letter, carefully written, and a set of keys to a small apartment Julian had been too afraid to claim, fearing he didn't deserve a fresh start. He looked at her, tears brimming, and whispered a secret that shook her. To her core, he had once been the CEO of a thriving construction company. One single misfortune, A single tragic event had stripped him of everything: wealth, reputation, home, and confidence. Yet here he was, sitting across from Ava, trusting a stranger to see the man beyond the tragedy. Ava felt a wave of emotion she could hardly contain: shock, sorrow, empathy, and finally, an overwhelming sense of hope. Julian Hayes, the man who had touched the bottom of despair, had survived and now, with her help, was stepping toward redemption. They sat in silence for a while, watching rain droplets race down the diner window, a quiet reminder that even storms eventually end. Julian's secret was not a story of wealth lost or fortune reclaimed, but of human resilience and the quiet power of a hand extended in trust and compassion. Weeks passed, and Julian's transformation became visible not just in his appearance, but in the way he held himself. He returned to his old passion for woodworking, opening a small workshop that employed others who had fallen on hard times. Ava continued her volunteer work, but now had Julian by her side, sharing her vision, helping those who had been forgotten, teaching the world that second chances are real and kindness can change destinies. The bond they formed wasn't just about gratitude, it was about mutual respect, understanding, the deep human connection that emerges when people dare to care beyond surface appearances. Their story quickly became a quiet inspiration in their community. Julian would sometimes speak at small events, sharing not the details of his wealth or loss, but the lesson that had defined his journey: that every act of kindness, no matter how small, ripples outward, reaching lives we may never fully comprehend. Ava's friends often asked how she had found him, and she would simply smile, saying that sometimes the universe places people in your path to remind you that no one is truly beyond hope. Julian's secret, once a burden that weighed him down, became a testament to resilience, forgiveness, and the power of human connection. As Julian and Ava sat on the steps outside his new workshop one bright morning, watch young apprentices carve wood with the careful joy of discovery, Julian turned to her. There was a softness in his eyes that spoke louder than words ever could. He thanked her, not just for rescuing him from the streets, but for believing in him when he had forgotten how to believe in himself. Ava, fighting back tears, realized that in helping Julian, she had been saved from cynicism, from doubt, and from forgetting the transformative power of compassion. Together, they had uncovered a truth that is often hidden in plain sight: that love, kindness, and trust can rebuild lives, piece by fragile piece. If this story touched your heart, please engage with the video, like, comment, and share. Your support helps stories of hope and second chances reach more people who need them. Before you go, please leave a comment sharing the small act of kindness you've done or received that changed someone's life. It could inspire another person today. Rainstorms may come and go, but the courage to extend a hand, to believe in redemption, and to embrace the human capacity for change lasts forever. Julian Hayes and Ava Kensington are living proof that even in the darkest nights, the light of compassion can guide the way, and sometimes that light begins with just one brave soul willing to care.